Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's another episode. It is another episode, not that. My pronouns.
We're not done yet.
Prepositions get all sorts of screwed up. But I get to see my guy, man. So it's a good day in the week, Jacob Padilla. I know it's on a Thursday. We keep trying to firm up the day, but these last 3 weeks, between the last 2 weeks in July and my first week in August, I have to do quite a bit of juggling with what's going on with the morning schedule and coaching. So I appreciate the flexibility. I promise you, once we settle into the season, in 2 weeks, maybe as soon as next week, NEB Preps will go on Tuesday. And we will be consistent with that throughout football, because you don't want to get too far. You had the best philosophy when we picked Tuesday to begin with a couple years ago. What was it again?
Kind of gave us time to get all the information we needed from the weekend, but wasn't late enough that they're so far in the rear view mirror.
Where we were previewing the next week. Yeah. So when all else fails, ask Jacob what he thinks, and that's probably what we'll do.
And this is talked about kind of busy week. This is kind of the transition period. Last weekend was the last weekend of summer basketball, and we've got 2 weeks until week 0 football. So I'm kind of at that point in the calendar where we need to start transitioning.
Your emotional clock, did you go, or are you like, okay, what's next?
Well, so I was down in Lincoln for the next finals, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday had to flip the page. We had football practice that morning for Huskers, and then Monday night we flew up to Chicago for Big Ten volleyball media days. So there was no time to stop, take a deep breath. It's like, well, flip right back into the next thing, and that's kind of what it was last year too, with this extra, because last year we played in this kind of extra tournament at the end just because 17s are like, why not? Let's just jump into it, get us an extra tournament. And so I was coaching that weekend and then went right into fall camp and media days and all that stuff. So it's not a whole lot of downtime. Got to be able to flip the switch quickly. And so I didn't even look ahead to like high school stuff. Like that was, as soon as I finished with basketball, I was right into football and volleyball. And then yesterday I realized, wait, week 0 is in 2 weeks. I really got to start kicking into gear.
I was going back to check out our colleagues' reports on Twitter. Is it still Twitter, or what do you call? Are we calling it?
I'm still calling it Twitter.
Okay,
people know what we're talking about.
Where Sauter was doing. I kind of like this little piece that he does from going into camp: 3 knowns, 3 unknowns, and questions or whatever. And when I saw the first one after he left prep, I was thinking, oh gosh, we don't start tonight. Wait, this is quick. This is coming up on us in a hurry. And I still have nationals for basketball for my little guy in Dallas this weekend. So it's like, I think I'm ready. It's chaotic. It's utter chaos. So you were in Lincoln all 3 days, man. How'd that treat you?
Pretty good. I mean, it wasn't, there are only 3 Nebraska programs down there to follow, so it wasn't too chaotic, too hectic, too many teams playing at the same time. Got to see most of the teams play, all the programs at least once or twice. But it was good because Omaha Elite finished off the season with a 5-0 record, tournament championship down there at the next final. So they've finished as a 1 seed in the next standings, which is the second division of the New Balance. Nebraska Supreme were on the Pro 16, we're on the sponsored side. And then the next teams are the ones that are fighting to qualify for the second half of the Pro 16 finals.
Playing their way in.
Yeah, and they did, and they made it to the finals. And then as a 1 seed, they also earned a spot in the next finals, and they took care of business there. And as a 1 seed, they earned the bye in the first round. And the second 2 games, they took care of business without any problem at all. Unfortunately, in the second game, Quinton McCafferty aggravated the shoulder injury that had him knocked out at the start of the season, and he was not able to play the rest of the tournament. So he had to watch from the bench as they needed other guys to step up. But first half, without him in the third or I guess fourth round, playing Hoop Life. It was a 1-point game at halftime because like they were trailing most of the half, and Keelan Bennett, who had a pretty good weekend, got a steal, took it the other way, and pulled up and hit a 3 at the buzzer to give them the lead after trailing most of the half. Second half, they just dominated. They outscored them 36-11. Really turned up the pressure defensively, and ran away with that game. And then after that, the last two games were tight, competitive. They faced Rogue in the semifinals, won 75-70. Rogue is a team out of Oklahoma, and I think they're like from the same high school. Like that's played them last year in this thing. Seeing them around, it's a pretty solid team. They got some good players. It was back and forth. They were down 6 at halftime and outscored them 38-27 in the second half. And one thing I saw, like Daleron Thomas had a great weekend. He had a great summer, basically throughout. Tweet out some of the highlights.
Complete agreement.
But the thing about him is like when he gets hot, like I can go back and look at this, but I don't know how many like double-digit scoring halves he had this season where maybe quiet, kind of feeling out the first half, and the second half he just takes over. He had 16 points in the second half of that Rogue game.
He's the epitome of a scorer. Very, very streaky.
Yeah, 100%.
Very streaky.
Finished with 24 in the game. Like I said 16 in the second half to kind of lead the comeback. And he's got such clean shooting mechanics. Really good stroke, really good touch, getting the mid-range and pull up. In transition, he's athletic enough to go up and finish. So he's a guy that can score in a lot of ways. Talked about before that the key with him is decision-making and not making the game harder on himself than it needs to be. But when he's locked in, man, he's a huge reason why they won.
I'm with you there. Definitely.
And Minor Strong was good in that game too. Finished with 18, 5 rebounds, 5 steals, 3 assists. And man, talked about it, tweet out the highlights, but like I don't know that I've seen anybody better recently with their hands. Like in terms of just straight up taking the ball away from you. His timing, he's got such long arms that he can reach a ball that I think the offensive players aren't expecting him to be able to get to. In the hand-eye coordination to get in there, not to foul, to get all ball, to time it perfectly, to poke it free, to get out in the passing lanes, knock it free, go down for steals and layups. He averaged, I saw 14 full games of them, and he had 3 or more steals in 10 of them, including some 4, 5, 6 steal games. Averaged 3.3 overall in those 14 games, which is ridiculous.
I was going through his stats that you tweeted out. You were talking about, because I like how you kind of do this. You highlight guys and you'll say, hey, listen, I've watched X amount of their games against top quality. I mean, just you being you, right? And so I'm looking at his defensive prowess is underappreciated, I think, when people talk about Strong's development. But he had a fantastic summer. He comes up on this show every week.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see now transitioning into that number 1 option role with Omaha North, with Dale Ron moving on with the other seniors off that North team gone. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy they rely on, going to be the number 1 option. Thing with him, so watching this team, both Devin Holman and Minor Strong, they got to develop a left hand.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time it's going left, shooting back right, and it ends up in a really tough shot teams can block.
I think his strength too, like his physical development. He's got such a wiry frame.
Yeah,
his physical development will be key for him.
100%. Like you get him into a college strength and conditioning program, he buys into that. He's got a chance to be really good at the next level. But yeah, right now, pretty skinny. I mean, and he will be that number 1 guy. But in the final, they beat Iowa Barnstormers Black. Absolute rock fight. It was 28-26 at halftime. And then in the second half, Omaha Elite kind of took control a little bit, outscored them 26-18 to win the title. And Dale Ron had 16 points, again, 14 in the second half.
Mm-hmm. Spurt ability.
Yep. 8 boards, 2 assists with 3 of 6 from 3. Minor, 15 points, didn't score well from the field, but got to the free throw line a ton, went 7 of 8 there, 3 steals. And then Keelan Bennett had a couple of big threes off that bench. Keelan also had 18 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals in that Hoop Life game. He had 12 points in their first game. So he's a guy, especially with McCaffrey going down, he was a guy that stepped up, and they they ended up playing a lot of small ball where they had like Keelan or Kevon Newsome or like they were playing basically 4.5 guards or whatever. They just took out their bigs to match up with what they're going with. And Keelan 6'4" long, he was able to step up and kind of fill some of those minutes. So that's a guy in Millard North. We talked about the early season competing for that fifth starter spot. And I don't know that he's a guy that's going to be like a consistent double-digit scorer for them. I think he's still got some work to do to get there. But I think he'll definitely have some moments this year for them. And kind of same thing, Grant Urbanic. Like they've got some guys that, you're going to have those other guys that are their stars. But you need role players to step up for stretches. And I think he can definitely be that guy for them. So that was kind of Omaha Elite's run. They finish it off strong and be able to bring the trophy back to Omaha. So that was kind of the hot headline there. The Nebraska Hoops Elite Black also won their first 2 games and then lost to Barnstormers Black in the quarterfinals, I believe it was. And Tay Moore had a great weekend. I didn't get to see start to finish their first 2 games because they were kind of time up.
His development will be interesting.
100%
capable in some areas, isn't he?
And they need him to take a leap this year. They've got some good pieces, but they kind of need him to step up and consistently be, all right, you're the go-to guy. With kind of Jake Hilkeman on the wing doing what he does, and some other guys, because outside of them, they got a lot of guys that are stepping up into bigger roles, even if they played a little bit in the past. And we'll talk about another guy that will be stepping up for them in a minute. But Tay Moore had 18 points in the first game, 17 points in the second, then 21 points in that Barnstormer game. It was close. Like they won their first game by 6. Second game, they were down the whole way. They were down like 9 with a couple minutes left and somehow rallied to win that thing over Team Oklahoma Red. And then they lost to Barnstormers Black by 2. Had a chance down the stretch, just couldn't. A couple different looks to tie the game up and couldn't get it to go. So their run ended there. Saw their 16s, Nebraska Hoops Elite Black 16s. They did not win a game, but one game I watched, they picked up Justice Gardner from Crete. And I think he for this weekend, his older brother Damon had played for Greg Hepburn for ICE previously. So I know I'm sure he's been doing some stuff just with Crete at some tournaments or whatever. But he's a guy to watch out for definitely in Class B this year. Crete's going to be really good.
They're going to be good.
Got a lot of size. And
they're going to be good again.
I think he's one that's going to take a big step forward for them.
How funny is it about, it was probably week 7, week 8 of high school basketball last year. We were doing this. And I think for about the next 2 or 3 weeks, we kept saying, hey, Crete's a team to watch. I wonder if they're for real. They just kept racking up win after win after win. And it's like, yeah, I think they're pretty good.
Yeah. And they got a lot of those guys coming back.
Yes, they do.
Justice had 19 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals in the game. Ami Williams went 4 of 8 from 3, had 18 points from Bellevue East. They just couldn't quite get enough help around them in that game.
Can I ask you something about him real quick? Because he kind of flies under the radar a little bit. Is it because they're not winning enough games, or they're still the growth and development just isn't quite there with how we talk about some of his peers? Because he has some good skills.
Yeah. And I think kind of last year was just, I mean, Bellevue East, you had some young backcourt. You had some older forwards that were kind of the focal points of the team, but you had guys like Ami and Chris Brown and some younger guards that are just kind of getting their feet wet at the varsity level, that stepping into kind of significant roles for the first time. Now continued on this season as those guys playing together for that team. Hopefully that'll allow them to kind of carry some over into the season playing together. But yeah, like Bellevue East, new coach, Lanier stepping in there, taking over for Chad Mustard. You've got, again, Ami and those guys now moving in their junior year. Now is the time for them to kind of establish themselves and start to get some of that attention you were talking about. We talked about Crete, watched Lincoln Supreme National. First game of their weekend, they lost in overtime by 5, 55-50. But Aiden McDowell, 14 points, 6 of 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. And Zaya Brown from Lincoln Southeast, 13 points, 2 steals, hit a 3 as well. So those are two guys, Crete there for McDowell and Brown for Lincoln Southeast, have a chance to step into the lineup for them and make a difference this year. Just couldn't get enough rebounds to win that game. Gave up some second chance buckets. They had a chance to kind of finish it out at the end of regulation. Couldn't get a stop. Couldn't get a board. Gave up a putback to send that game to overtime and just couldn't score in overtime. But they bounced back to win their last two games. 2 double-digit wins to end their summer. I know Brad Jacobson been coaching Supreme for a long time, and now Dane. It was his last AAU game playing for his dad, so I was glad they're able to pull out a win in that one.
How that name in terms of basketball folklore for the last seemingly double-digit years, for sure the last 7 or 8, but it's like, oh, here's another one.
Yep. Lincoln Supreme National 2 went 2-1. I saw their first game, went over Iowa Mavs Purple, and talked about Lincoln Pius 10 had a chance to be pretty darn good,
especially if they stay healthy.
Yep. Aiden Brass had a good game, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Kellen Hum, shot wasn't falling. We know he can get hot, but he had 10 rebounds from the guard spot to go with 9 points. And rebounding was big in that game for them again.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Pius was your safest pick for the teams in Lincoln just because you felt like you know the most about what you're getting?
Yeah, they got a really solid 6-7 there. And a lot of those guys played last year. You got Trayson Anderson in the middle kind of as the foundational piece. And then you've got some size on the wings. You got Brass, you got Hum, Drew Drake. You got some younger guys, Parker Kelly and Michael Haith on that Lincoln Supreme National 1 16U team. That'll be good pieces for them. And then they got a few other guys, some football players, some other guys to add some size coming in off the bench there. So they've got a pretty well-rounded team there. I mentioned that 16U team. They went 3-0. They weren't in the actual bracket portion of it. They just had 3 showcase games. And I did not get to see them play live because they were at the other building the entire time, unfortunately. Although I was over there watching the 15s play and then looked over on the court and saw Mike Nagoy back-to-back breakaway dunks. Went with the two-handed one the first time, like seeing it before. Second time he went one-handed, left-handed, and threw it down. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know he had it like that. So that's another Southeast. He'll have a chance to, with the guards that ahead of him transferring out, he'll have a chance to play a real role.
Got a role.
Yeah. So they went 3-0, won by a lot every game. Their 16 National 2 went 2-1. So 5-1 between the 2 16U squads. So good weekend for them. And then final team, Lincoln Supreme National 1. They went 3-1. They were in the bracket play. They won their first game by 17 over BYC Elite, and then I got to watch them play against Family Ties. Pretty good team. Strong, physical, athletic. They lost 53-41, and man, they had this game won. They had a foul to give. They were up 2. They tried to give it. They told the ref, hey, we're going to give a foul if they get past us. Got past him, reach out, grabbed him. Didn't call it, and the kid went hard to the basket, and they called the foul at the rim. So goes to the line, hits both. Get the ball, push it down the court. Uzziah Sanders throws up a floater. It rims out. Treston Haas gets the rebound, goes back up. Dude jumps into him, drops the arm, swats it. Definitely a foul, and they let it go at the buzzer. So
definitely a foul, he said.
Tough way to lose in the bracket play. But it was a really competitive game, back and forth. Uzziah Sanders from Lincoln Southwest led the way, 17 points, 7 boards, 4 offensive, a little dude. Like, again, twin brother of Makai on my team. Usually the smallest guys out there.
I've seen them
they're
since
so
they've
athletic.
been young.
Yeah. And Uzziah had a really good weekend. And Shakobi Kerr from Lincoln North Star had 8 points and 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. They went 4-15 from the free throw line.
You're not going to get her done.
Yeah, that one definitely hurt. But they bounced back, beat KC Spurs wing by 33. Treston Haas from Seward, he's a name I think in Class B you'll probably hear a little bit of this year. He was kind of a 6-man scorer for them last year, and he was probably, season long, he's probably the leading scorer for that Lincoln Supreme team. Had 23 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Damon, we lost, or I lost StreamYard here.
Shane, are we still getting the audio?
Yep. Keep
Okay.
going.
All right. We will try again. Yep. Oh,
Well, you're still good audio. You're still
Okay.
good audio-wise.
there we go. All right. So sorry, podcast listeners. The cord came out. We got to get a new cord here, the one that stays in. That's not broken. But anyway, so won that game. McCoy Folkert from Norris, who kind of the hero of their district game. 18 points. Did not miss a shot. 7-7 from the field, 4 from the line. Zaya had 9 points, 2 steals, and then the last game of the weekend, or their last game of the summer, beat Casey Red Storm 67-50, and it was kind of close, and then they pulled away in the second half. But Crescent Hass again, 24 points, 7 boards, hit 4 threes. Zaya Sanders, 15 points, 4 steals, 3 assists. Jackson Urbanowski from Norris, 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks. So they got a really good, strong showing for them to kind of close out the weekend and the weekend on a high note. And that's kind of all I got for the summer basketball. It's
Let me ask you real quick, kind of stock up, stock down. It's Amari Bynum, Cade Cook, Frager, Jaden Jackson, guys, Ball, all those guys kind of stock up.
I think so. They all had really good weekends and either earned offers or earned more offers, put themselves in good position.
Who else is probably in that small group? Because I think I just only rattled off like 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah.
So you got Ball, Cook, Jackson.
Dylan Clausen.
Oh, good call.
Yeah.
Good call. Bynum and Frager. Those were the guys.
Yeah, for sure. I think Marcus Glock helped himself, started picking up those D2 offers.
Right. Showing some versatility to his game.
I think be curious to see what happened, like who shows interest with Neil Mosser, because of the elite skill set that he has.
Shooting. Yeah,
not the most well-rounded player, but he is so good at what he does well. And he's got some positional size at 6'4" on the wing spot. So he's another guy that shot the lights out this summer. So he's a guy I'm interested to see kind of who shows interest in him. So yeah, those are some names. Like a lot of kids that played well this summer. We mentioned Daleron Thomas just picked up another JUCO offer. I think he's definitely showed well for himself this summer, as we talked about.
If Central can get the new faces to settle in new places, they've got good talent.
Yep. We talked about Deshaun Prince, who ended up playing basketball in July with ETG, a piece that will really help them. They just got to get everybody healthy through the football season, because most of their lineup are football players outside of Dale and Devin.
Everybody.
Exactly, Trev. Everybody.
So that's the team. It'll be interesting to see them in football, kind of with all those guys coming over, obviously new coaching staff and all that there. And that's kind of what we're transitioning to now next week. And I know you mentioned you're getting ready to start camp. How's it feel now that it's here?
Oh, it's good. Like, I think we're pretty excited. We're coming off a 2-week camp, and our kids voted to go to a morning schedule next week, which kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop as a guy that works in the mornings. But that staff won't report until they can work the afternoons, and they'll practice in the morning, and then they don't have to be in the buildings until 8:15, 8:30. So they'll get a little leeway there before school opens. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a little more competitive than people think. I think people think it's a 2 or 3 horse race, and I really don't. And I mean that with all sincerity. I just think there's a couple 2-3 teams in particular I think it'd be better than the experts think. And I think it's Gretna. I think North will be better, and I like Elkhorn South. And that's that. I didn't even mention Millard South, Millard North. I mean, it's not just the West Side Bellevue West thing like people think. And Gretna will be hungry as well.
Yeah, Gretna's tough to figure out. Just obviously losing who they did, and with the school split, figure out, all right, what do they got coming back? What do they got coming up? Obviously, Alex Wilcox and Joey Veith are 2 starters coming back and significant players for them. It'll be Wilcoxon's show at quarterback.
A lot of people like Calvin Jansen.
But we'll have to dive more fully into that, get some thoughts, have you elaborate on that next week as we kind of start our football season previews here.
Yeah, it'll be previews next week. Jacob will be back with me. He hasn't left me yet. Matter of fact, we may go some places together. It's another week of Nebraska Preps Postgame. That's my main man, Jacob Padilla. I am Old Man DB. Back next week. Stay tuned.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.